They said we were crazy. They said we were extreme. They said, how dare you question a former president? Well, I say, how dare you not? Because when treason whispers, when deception dances through the highest halls of power, and when darkness dares to wear the mask of leadership, it is not silence that saves a nation. It is boldness. And the bold are rising right now. Now, folks, listen. We're not talking about politics here. This is not red or blue, left or right. This is right or wrong. This is about the soul of the republic. You feel it. I feel it. The people feel it. You know what I'm talking about. You see the headlines, the whispers turning into shouts. Go after Obama. Treason, real treason, not pretend, not political theater, the kind that infects a nation like a virus silently, slowly, while smiling on TV. And I'll tell you something very important. I want you to listen closely. When you stand in truth, when you carry purpose, you don't scream, you don't panic, you don't beg, you observe, you expose, you win. That's what strength looks like. And we are winning. People ask me, how do you stay so calm when the world is on fire? Because I know who I am. I know the mission. When you walk in truth, the noise doesn't touch you. Emotional detachment is not coldness, it's confidence. It's knowing you don't chase justice with chaos. You deliver it with precision. Now, the other side, they're sweating, they're nervous, they want distraction, they want drama. But here's the secret. When guilty people feel the walls closing in, they accuse you of exactly what they did. Remember that every single time. Obama, the name is no longer sacred. The name is no longer untouchable. People are waking up. They're asking questions that should have been asked a long time ago. Who really ran the show? Who gave the orders? Who weaponized the system against the American people? These aren't conspiracies. They're revelations. You can feel it in your gut. There's a shift in the air, a spiritual change, a divine alignment. The old systems are collapsing because truth demands it. The people are no longer satisfied with silence. They're no longer hypnotized by smooth words and bright smiles. They want answers, and they will get them. But here's the key. We don't go after anyone out of anger. We go after lies because we love truth. We go after betrayal because we cherish loyalty. We go after treason because we adore freedom. We don't shout on the streets. We build altars of justice in the courts, in the public square, in the hearts of the people, and the truth will not be stopped. You have to understand, this isn't just about one man. This isn't just about Obama. This is about what he represents. A system, a deception, a kingdom built on sand, and it is falling fast. Don't let your emotions blind you. The guilty want you emotional, but the strong remain grounded. That's how we win. Calm, focused, unstoppable. The ones calling out treason today will be called prophets tomorrow. Mark my words. Let the truth speak. Let justice roar like thunder, and let the people of America rise calm, strong, and absolutely fearless, because the storm is not coming. The storm is already here. Emotional detachment is not indifference. It's mastery. It's the mark of someone who has transcended the noise, the chaos, the fear, and now operates from a place of deep inner power. When people lash out, when they react with anger or panic, what they're really revealing is their instability. They're not in control of themselves. They're being pulled by emotion, manipulated by the moment. But the one who remains calm, who doesn't flinch, who watches with clear eyes, that's the one who already has the upper hand. That's the one who's aligned with something higher than emotion. That's the one who wins. You see, in a world driven by drama and outrage, remaining emotionally detached is not weakness. It's not apathy. It's not coldness. It's divine strength. It means you're not easily moved by lies. It means you've built your house on the rock, not the sand. It means you understand that not every attack deserves a reaction, and not every accusation deserves a defense. The mature man, the wise woman, the leader, they know how to listen without absorbing. They know how to wait without whining. And when the time is right, they move not because they're provoked, but because they're led. People who are emotionally unstable can be easily manipulated. They become puppets to the narrative. But when you detach, when you observe, when you measure, when you respond with clarity instead of confusion, you become a weapon in the hand of truth. You become someone the enemy can't predict, can't control, and can't intimidate. And that's why emotional detachment is not just a strategy, it's a shield. It's the armor of the wise. It's the signal that you're not operating in fear, you're operating in authority. And authority doesn't scream, it speaks, and the room falls silent. Truth is not emotional. It doesn't rely on volume, drama, or theatrics to make its point. It doesn't need to scream to be heard. Truth walks into the room quietly, confidently, and everything false begins to tremble. That's the power of truth. It stands on its own. It doesn't bend to public opinion. It doesn't adjust itself to be more popular. It doesn't chase applause. It simply is. The people who are loud, angry, constantly explaining themselves, what are they hiding? Why the performance? Why the need to convince, manipulate, or distract? Because they don't have the truth, they have noise. Truth doesn't panic. It's not afraid of cross-examination. It welcomes it. Because truth is consistent. It sounds the same in every room. It survives every storm. It doesn't need defense teams to spin it. It doesn't need media mouthpieces to dress it up. Truth doesn't come to please, it comes to reveal. And when it does, it cuts through the lies like a blade. It offends, yes. It exposes, yes. But it always liberates. Always. That's why people fear it. That's why corrupt systems try to drown it out. That's why liars talk louder, faster, and more often, because silence terrifies them. In silence, the truth speaks loudest. When you walk in truth, you don't have to match the energy of the deceivers. You don't have to shout back. You let them burn out while you build. You let them scream while you rise. Truth doesn't chase. It draws. It doesn't provoke. It convicts. The most dangerous man in the room is not the one who's yelling. It's the one who knows the truth and doesn't flinch. Because deep down, everyone knows the truth doesn't break under pressure. It becomes clearer, and when it's time, it always wins. Treason is not just a crime against the country, it's a spiritual betrayal. It's the severing of loyalty, the corrosion of trust, and the deepest form of deception. When someone takes an oath, when they swear to defend a nation and its people, and then they turn against that promise, they're not just breaking laws, they're breaking covenants, they're violating something sacred, because loyalty to a nation isn't only political, it's spiritual. It's a bond between soul and soil, between servant and people, between man and mission. And when that bond is broken, it damages more than the Constitution. It wounds the spirit of a nation. Treason hides. It whispers. It disguises itself in patriotism, in leadership, in polished speeches, and smiling photos. It doesn't storm the gates. It infiltrates from within. That's why it's so dangerous, because it doesn't look like a threat until it's too late. And the people who commit it, they rarely look guilty. They rarely act afraid. But deep down, they know. They know what they did, they know what they planned, and eventually what's done in darkness comes into the light. When a leader turns against their own people, when they weaponize the system to crush truth, silence dissent, and enrich themselves, that's not leadership. That's betrayal. That's treason. And the nation feels it. The people feel it. You don't even have to say it out loud. It's in the air. It's in the silence after the cameras are turned off. It's in the eyes of the people who voted for hope and got surveillance, who trusted the system and got deception. Treason isn't just about breaking laws, it's about breaking hearts. But the good news is exposure is coming with it, justice. Because betrayal may be silent, but justice never is. And when justice speaks, treason falls. Every time. Evil rarely shows up with horns and a warning label, and it hides, it operates in shadows, it smiles while it lies. The most dangerous people are not the loud ones, they're the polished ones, the smooth talkers, the carefully scripted figures who know how to say just enough of the right things to sound sincere. They wrap corruption in charm. They wear expensive suits, speak with confidence, shake hands with the cameras flashing, and all the while they're selling out the very people who trusted them. That's how evil hides, not in the open, but in plain sight. It doesn't announce itself. It integrates. It becomes part of the system. It gets invited to the parties. It sits on panels. It's praised in the media, adored by celebrities, and held up as an example of leadership. But what is it really doing? Undermining freedom, eroding truth, strangling justice from the inside out. And most people don't even notice because they're too distracted by the show. That's the strategy. Evil knows it can't win through brute force. It has to infiltrate. it has to deceive, and the people who serve it, they're calculated, they're methodical, they know exactly how to move, they pretend to unite while they divide, they pretend to build while they destroy, but eventually even the best disguise slips, the eyes of the people open, the silence breaks, and when the truth begins to surface, evil scrambles to cover itself with more lies. The problem is, the more it tries to hide, the more obvious it becomes, because the light is getting stronger, the people are getting wiser, and the system that once protected evil is now collapsing under the weight of its own deception. Evil hides in plain sight, but it doesn't stay hidden forever. And when it's exposed, there's no turning back. Calling out wrong is not optional, it's a moral obligation. When you see corruption, when you witness betrayal, when truth is being strangled in front of your eyes, silence is not strength, it's surrender. And surrender is not what this country was built on. You don't stay quiet to keep the peace when the peace has already been violated by deception. You speak, you stand, you call it out for what it is. That's not hate. That's not division. That's righteousness. That's courage. Too many people have been conditioned to believe that keeping quiet is the mature thing to do, that speaking up will make you look crazy or controversial or extreme. But you know what's extreme? Letting a nation rot from the inside while pretending everything's fine. What's extreme is watching the truth get buried and acting like it doesn't affect you. But it does. It affects everyone. Because when lies go unchecked, they multiply. When darkness is left alone, it spreads. Calling out wrong isn't about vengeance. It's about alignment with truth. When you're in alignment with truth, you don't fear confrontation. You welcome it, not to cause chaos, but to bring order, to bring light, to bring clarity. And the people who resist that exposure, who panic when the questions get asked, they're revealing everything. The guilty always scream the loudest, but the boldest always speak the clearest. Every generation reaches a point where the silence becomes unbearable, where the lies no longer work, where the people rise up, not with rage, but with revelation. We're in that moment now. The duty is clear. It's not about going after people. It's about refusing to bow to deception. Truth demands a voice. And those who choose to remain silent will eventually be remembered not for their peace, but for their cowardice. Peace isn't weakness. It's power under control. When a person carries true confidence, they don't need to make noise. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. They walk into a room and their presence speaks before they do. That's peace. That's authority. And it only comes when you know exactly who you are, what you stand for, and why you're here. It's not fake peace that folds under pressure. It's not passive. It's not naive. It's rooted, grounded, unshakable. The world teaches people to react. Panic, scream, defend, accuse. That's what fear does. But when you're secure, when you've seen behind the curtain, when you understand the deeper war that's being fought, you don't move based on noise. You move based on truth. Confidence doesn't come from how many people agree with you. It comes from alignment with purpose, with destiny, with God. That's where real peace lives. And when you carry that kind of peace, your enemies feel it. They don't know how to handle it. They expect chaos, they expect rage, but instead they meet stillness and it rattles them. That's how battles are won, not just with force, but with clarity. When you're calm under pressure, you can see what others miss. You speak with precision. You don't waste energy. And that composure becomes your weapon. While others are swinging wildly, you're watching. While others are crumbling, you're building. It's not because you're detached, it's because you're anchored. The greatest leaders in history didn't scream their way to victory. They stood tall even when the world tried to break them. Because peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of purpose. And when you have purpose, real purpose, no lie, no attack, no headline can steal your focus. Peace wins because peace never chases. Peace stands and truth follows. A nation cannot heal until it confronts its past. You don't fix a foundation by painting over the cracks. You fix it by tearing up the floorboards and dealing with what's underneath. That's the only way real restoration happens, by facing what others have tried to bury. And let's be honest, America has been run by people who specialize in burying things. Secrets, documents, agendas, lies, all tucked away behind closed doors, sealed by executive privilege, protected by media spin. But the truth, it never stays buried forever. Eventually it rises, and when it does, the whole structure has to face it. You can't move forward if you're still dragging the chains of deception behind you. You can't build anything lasting on top of a lie. This country has been wounded not just by what was done, but by what was covered up. The surveillance, the abuse of power, the betrayal of the American people from the inside out. These aren't rumors, they're facts, and they've been ignored for far too long. But now the veil is lifting and the system is trembling. People say we just need to move on. No, we need to deal with it. If someone commits treason at the highest level and walks away untouched, what message does that send to every citizen who obeys the law? What message does that send to the families who paid the price for someone else's ambition? Healing doesn't happen by pretending nothing happened. Healing starts with truth, and truth starts with confrontation. We're not looking back to stay stuck. We're looking back to make sure it never happens again. This is a generation that won't settle for bandages over bullet wounds. We don't want comfort. We want cleansing. We don't want shallow unity. We want justice, because only then can a nation truly rise. Justice is not revenge. It's not fueled by anger or bitterness. It's not about settling scores or destroying enemies. Justice comes from a higher place. It's about restoring order. It's about putting truth back in the center where it belongs. When someone calls for accountability, not out of hate, but out of love for country, love for freedom, love for what's right, that's not revenge. That's responsibility. That's honor. That's leadership. There are people who hear the call for justice and immediately try to twist it. You just want to get even, they say. You're just obsessed with the past. No, we're obsessed with the truth. And when leaders violate their oath, betray their people, weaponize the very institutions meant to protect liberty that can't be brushed aside in the name of false peace, the call to investigate, to hold people accountable, isn't coming from hate. It's coming from clarity. Justice doesn't scream. It doesn't throw tantrums. It moves with calm, steady precision. It gathers facts. It exposes what's hidden. It gives voice to those who are silenced. And above all, it gives the people their dignity back. Because when corruption rules unchecked, the people feel powerless. They feel lied to. And if you let that fester, it becomes decay. We don't want to destroy anyone. We want to restore everything. Truth, honor, trust. That's the purpose. We don't go after men. We go after the mechanisms that allowed lies to prosper. That's the difference between justice and revenge. Revenge wants pain. Justice wants alignment. Once justice arrives, something changes in the atmosphere. The air clears, the fear disappears, and the people begin to breathe freely again. That's not punishment. That's healing. That's the mission. And it's non-negotiable because justice is not optional. It's sacred. Spiritual clarity isn't granted to the crowd. It's given to the courageous. It doesn't come from comfort or applause or following what's popular. It comes from standing alone, often in the quiet with your feet planted in conviction while the world calls you crazy. That's where clarity is born. Not in the noise, but in the fire. Not in agreement, but in confrontation. The truth doesn't chase comfort. It reveals itself to those willing to carry the weight of it even when it costs them everything. You can't see clearly when you're trying to please everyone. You can't speak truth when you're afraid of losing followers, friends, or reputation. The moment you need approval is the moment you lose spiritual vision. Real clarity requires sacrifice. It demands that you let go of fear and walk straight into the unknown, trusting that what you stand for is bigger than what you'll lose. That's how the great ones were built. Not by being liked, but by being right, long before the world caught up. Courage doesn't scream. It doesn't always get credit, but it never flinches. It hears the lie, sees the agenda, and still chooses to speak. Not to be loud, but to be aligned, and that alignment gives you eyes others don't have. You begin to see through the surface. You recognize the patterns. You spot deception even when it's dressed in kindness. That's not paranoia, it's discernment. And it only comes when you've paid the price to think for yourself. The powerful don't fear being alone. They fear being fake. They fear betraying their assignment. That's spiritual clarity. It's not loud, but it's lethal to lies. It's not dramatic, but it's devastating to darkness. Because when the clear-minded speak, even the blind start to see. Fear is always the weapon of the guilty. When someone knows they're innocent, they stand tall, they speak clearly, they face the storm without blinking. But when guilt is present, real, deep, undeniable guilt, it shows. It leaks through the cracks. The voice trembles, the hands shake, the story changes, and the moment pressure is applied, they panic, they try to flip the narrative, they accuse others, they deflect, they project, because fear is the language of those who know they're about to be exposed. The guilty don't want the truth to come out. So they flood the system with distractions, they launch investigations on the innocent, they smear whistleblowers, they call boldness dangerous. But what are they really afraid of? Exposure. They know what they did, and they know that once the light hits their secrets, the whole game is over. So they react with fear because fear is their only defense. But fear can't hold up under the weight of truth. It breaks, it cracks, and the louder they get, the clearer it becomes. Innocent people don't need chaos to protect them. Guilty people do. That's why they create noise. That's why they build narratives, because without the noise, without the panic, without the scripted outrage, they'd have nothing left but accountability. When the righteous speak, they do it calmly. When the guilty respond, they do it desperately. The contrast is unmistakable, and the American people are beginning to see it. They're waking up to it. The ones screaming the loudest about threats to democracy are the ones who betrayed it. The ones begging for unity are the ones who divided the nation. And the ones pretending to be afraid are the ones who should be, because the truth is coming and fear has nowhere left to hide. The hour of pretending is over, the masks are slipping, the systems are cracking, and voices once mocked for speaking truth are now echoing through every corner of this nation. This isn't about politics, it never was. This is a war for the soul of a people, for the foundation of a republic, for the covenant between truth and power. And that war is being won not by rage, not by noise, but by those who stood in silence, held the line, and refused to bow. We do not go after darkness with hatred in our hearts. We confront it with fire in our spirit and clarity in our mission. We don't scream to be heard. We speak to reveal. And we don't chase justice for vengeance. We demand it because without it, there is no freedom. Without accountability, there is no healing. Without truth, there is no future. So let the guilty tremble, let the deceivers run in circles, let them try every distraction, every delay, every desperate scheme. It will not work because this moment belongs to the bold. It belongs to the awake. It belongs to the ones who never sold out, never backed down, and never surrendered their voice, no matter how loud the lies became. The time for shallow peace is over. The time for a righteous reckoning has come. And when it is done, history will not remember who was the loudest. It will remember who stood when it mattered most. And we are standing. Now we move forward, not in fear, but in absolute, unshakable truth.